Rick, do you need me talking in the microphone? Is this anywhere? Be fine.
So hello everybody.
Hello.
Hello. Good to be back. Good to be back. We are talking about the power of spiritual understanding today. Next month we'll be talking about the power of judgment. And if y'all have done any studying about the 12 powers or anything, you'll know that judgment and understanding are kind of closely related. I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time on judgment today, but I am going to be talking a little bit about some of the concepts that sometimes get confusing when you talk about judgment and understanding. Kind of untangle it a little bit so that we can suss it out and grab hold of the power and understand the difference between these two. Because there is a fundamental difference, and understanding that difference will help to elevate the power that we express using these things. So to recap, we started in January, we talked about the power of will. That was the executive power. What the will does, all the other powers have to go along with it, even if it's not in our best interest, once the will has decided. We talked about the power of love in February. The power of love is the harmonizing power, the unifying power, brings unity. Peace is a consequence of love, by the way. Peace is not a thing unto itself, it's an effect. Unconditional love is the cause, peace is the effect. In March, we talked about faith. Faith is the perceiving power. It's the one that allows us to see the cosmic substance, the stuff of creation, and even before something takes form. Faith is what informs us to believe that this is possible, even when there's no evidence really to support it. Different kind of understanding about faith as a whole. Do a whole thing on faith, right? In April, we talked about the power of imagination. Faith and imagination work real closely together. Faith perceives, imagination puts clothes on it, basically. Colors, textures, form, excites that. People think of imagination as being sort of fantasy or fanciful, but not in the way we talk about imagination in 12 powers here. It's a viable, powerful creative power. It's not just about fantasy. In May, we talked about the power of power. That was the power of our word room that was located in our throat area. And as Russell talked about earlier today, our words are going to follow our thoughts and actions. They're going to continue to confirm it. Everything we say, every action we take is going to confirm what our internal beliefs are. We're teaching all the time, whether we know it or not. All of us are teachers, effectively. And all of us, as that song just mentioned a moment ago, we all have the same one teacher. That was one of the things that Jesus talked about with everyone, was that, hey, there's one teacher. Even the Christ has but one teacher. If I'm a teacher at all right now in this room, I'm a teacher among teachers. And if I do my job well in this moment, then what I will do is motivate and stimulate your own innate curiosity, your own drive to seize hold of your own powers. You don't need me as a teacher, you just need me as an expression of the Christ presence to serve as an example, a demonstration that what I can do, you can do. Isn't that what Jesus told us, right? So in June, we talked about the power of order, the power of spiritual law and order. And I'm going to refer back to that in just a moment here when we get to the lesson on understanding. So just check that for right now. In July, last month, we talked about the power of renunciation, our power to say no in order to say yes. Every time we say no, we say yes to something. And it works the same way. Every time we say yes to something in our life, we also say no to some other things, even if we don't go down the laundry list. For example, one of the examples that Emily Cady makes in the Lessons in Truth book is that if we truly believe unity principle number 1 that says there's only one power and one presence in the universe, and that power is good, if we really believe that, then at the same time we're saying there is no separate power, there is no evil power, there is no power that can act in opposition to the one true power. Now, we may not ever actually articulate that for ourselves, and it may be a stumbling block for some people to deeper understand what that means. But it's true. If you believe unity principle number 1, that there's only one power, one presence, then you believe there is no opposing power. And if you believe that, that's when you really start getting hold of power, right? So this month we're talking about the power of spiritual understanding. And as I mentioned a moment ago, it's closely related to the power of judgment, or as I like to call it, discernment. I'm not a big fan of the word judgment. has some other kinds of loaded connotations as to what it means, and it winds up being an impediment for people to come closer to understanding what its true nature of power is, because, well, I don't want to be judgmental. That's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. Being judgmental is a perception error, right? If we were truly judging correctly, if we were truly judging righteously, if we were rightly using our power of judgment or discernment, then we would see the Christ's presence in everyone first. That'd be the first thing we would see. And then everything that happens after that is evaluated through that filter. But quite frankly, when we're out there operating in the world, a lot of times we forget that. And then we're acting some other way. I mentioned I'm going to go back to the spiritual law and order thing. I'll bring up this one point that Charles makes in the chapter on spiritual law and order. He says the biggest failing that we have as humankind, the biggest failing that we have is the misunderstanding of the true nature of our relationship to God, the true nature of our being. That's our biggest failing, is that we misunderstand that. And because we misunderstand it, we misexpress it. If you don't understand your true nature, and you don't understand the power that's available to you, then the best you can do is kind of run around using your power blindly, right? If you misunderstand it. So today we're going to talk about spiritual understanding, what it is, why it's different from judgment or discernment, why it's even different than wisdom. It's not the same thing as wisdom, which we'll find out here in just a little bit. And we're going to be talking about these for the next couple of months, so some of this conversation today will carry over into next month's talk as well. So, first thing we need to know about spiritual understanding, to kind of say, what is it not, right? Well, I've already mentioned that it's not judgment. Understanding is not the same thing as judgment. It's not even the same thing as discernment. Judgment and discernment are thinking activities. It happens in our left brain, our rational mind. Information comes in, we sort through it, say yes, no, we make some kind of decision here at the left brain part of us to say what this is, as it relates to, say, truth. This is true, this is not true. It's like binary code, zeros and ones. It's either on or it's off. It's either yes or no, right? It's that kind of sorting that we do in the thinking activity, and that's where the power of judgment and discernment takes place. We'll cover more of that next month. But this month, we want to think about the right brain, which I mentioned in meditation a little while ago, because it's on the right brain activity where we actually access the power of our spiritual understanding. It is not a thinking activity. It is not a thinking activity. It is an intuitive activity. Now, Charles talks about in lining up the chapter on the power of spiritual understanding, he starts off by using some synonyms that quite frankly creates a little bit of confusion sometimes. And the synonyms are knowledge, intelligence, and wisdom. And oftentimes people get those things confused. They get all kind of tangled together. And when they're tangled together, we don't really understand the nuances between them. And therefore we just think that, wait, my position is we don't have a power of wisdom. We don't have a power of wisdom. But wisdom at the level of divine mind is just like knowledge and intelligence. In other words, wisdom is a place at the level of pure reason, at the level of divine mind, where all the things have been thought through and says, hey, if you're going to engage in this activity, then this is the appropriate and right way to move through it. Wisdom is like our ability to foresee consequences before we take action. You know, if I choose to do this, it's going to be dangerous. It's going to be risky. Maybe some bad things will happen if I choose to do this. Wisdom would say, well, don't do that. Right? And that's what wisdom is like, knowledge applied. So it's not really a power, even though Charles talks about it as one of the words where he'll describe it. He uses it in the context of judgment, that wisdom is judgment. And he also uses it in the context of the power of spiritual understanding. But it's not the same thing. It's not a power. It's a level of objective truth, as it were, at the level of divine mind. Charles says also that wisdom is above all of the other powers. And like I mentioned a moment ago, that peace is actually an effect of unconditional love. Peace is an effect, a consequence of being able to maintain an air of neutrality as you move through the world, non-attachment, right? That's how we stay at peace. That's how we achieve peace and stay at peace. But you can't get to peace. There's no other way to get to peace except going through unconditional love. That's it. So if you're experiencing peace in a situation, it's because you've achieved some level of unconditional love. And if you've done it once, you can do it again. And if you've done it a little bit, you can do it more. You can express more unconditional love more of the time. Because that capacity, the power of love, is within us, right? That's the number one power, is what they would say, right? There is no greater power than the power of love. So, in that hierarchy where wisdom is above, Charles places knowledge and intelligence as being auxiliary to wisdom. In other words, they help facilitate wisdom, but they're not really the same thing as wisdom. At the level of divine mind, or in the kingdom of heaven, as it were, there is no need for understanding. There is no need for understanding. The principles are what the principles are. We need understanding here in our human activity because we don't understand, not only do we not understand our own true nature of our relationship with divine mind, if we don't understand that, then all of our understanding about anything is at best incomplete and flawed. Right? So Charles talks about how when they're compiling the dictionary, there's two schools of metaphysical thought that have risen over the course of time. Okay? There are the writers, philosophers, people like Immanuel Kant, and Hegel, and Schopenhauer. And these people studied mind as like an empirical thing. Like the idea of science is like we can only document what we can observe. And if it's not able to be observed, then it's not real. Right? So that's the level of philosophy that says if it can't be observed, it's not real. And then there's this other school of metaphysical literature and writers and everything. These are the spiritual writers and the religious authors over the course of time who come at the level of mind, the activity of mind, from a spiritual orientation. They see the activity of mind as being an effect of the cause of spirit and soul, as he says. In other words, we have spirit over here, and it's a causal factor, right? It's a causal factor. And that the activity of the human mind came later. It's an effect. It's not a prime cause. That's why we can't get a deeper spiritual understanding unless we ask for it. Unless we ask for it, unless we desire it, unless we take action, tangible action, to move through our fear, our resistance, wherever the case may be, we will only gain the level of spiritual understanding that we are willing to gain. But if we're willing to gain it, if we're truly willing to gain it, there's no telling how deep it will go. Solomon, right? King Solomon, he's one of the wisest figures in the Bible, right? And at one point in time, he has a dream. And in the dream, God says, hey, what is it you're going to ask of me? What would you like to ask of me? And in the dream, Solomon, who could have asked for anything in this dream, right? It's a dream, right? You can ask for anything. Solomon reports that he asked for an understanding heart. Give me an understanding heart so that I might rightly judge the people. And because Solomon asked for an understanding heart, as opposed to riches and power, God gave him not only an understanding heart, but he also added the riches and the power that came along with it, right? So that reminds us of what? Matthew, when Jesus says, seek ye first the kingdom of God. Dave was being an example of that before. He's wanting to be an expression of that in the world. And he gives that acknowledgement to that power that's working through him. Seek that first, and all these other things will be added. That's something that's valuable in our understanding. Because how many times do we think we want to do it all of ourselves? I got this problem, I can't bother God or anybody else with this problem today. I created this mess, I don't have the right to ask anybody for help, including God. And then what are we doing with our consciousness in that moment? Are we supporting it? Or are we kind of dogging it? Turning the light down. That's a misuse, as I mentioned before. That would be a misuse of the power of our imagination. It's a misuse of your power of imagination to project that you, or anyone else for that matter, is anything less than the perfect expression of God. If I hold that intention or that thought for anyone else, that is a misuse of my power. Do we want to misuse our power here in this sanctuary today? We want to use it rightly, right? I love Eric Butterworth. He talks about the word righteous, right? How many people get a charge a little bit when you hear that self-righteous indignation, the kinds of connotations we've attached to the word righteous over the course of time? It's not used in a positive sense. It's become sort of degraded over the course of time. But Eric Butterworth points out that the word really means right use. Right use. To use rightly the power that is ours, that is available to us. So if you want to be righteous, then that means, in a positive sense, that I'm rightly using my power. That's another level of deeper understanding of these words. I'm a big fan of words, and all the time when I'm writing these articles and preparing these talks and everything, I'm always going to Google and pulling up, give me the definition of words I've known all my life. Words I've used all my life. Words I write on a regular basis, speak on a regular basis. But every once in a while, I stop and I actually look at the definition and the etymology of these things. Where did these words come from? What are their original roots? And how they become, there's like a multiplicity of uses for them. And some of them sort of depart a little bit from it. That's one of the ways why judgment, discernment, knowledge, intelligence, wisdom, and understanding, these words all kind of get jumbled up together. So what we're doing here is kind of like I said earlier, teasing that out a little bit, untangling them from one another so we can see them individually and see what they mean. Right? Understanding. Like that sitting under, and the word stand was from a word that also was the root word substance. So it's what's underneath the substance. Deeper, intuitive level. Right? This is how, have you ever had one of these moments where you're having a conversation with somebody, for example? You might be ministering to them, or y'all talking, y'all are parsing out the nature of the universe, whatever it is, and you find yourself speaking something that you've never spoken before, that you've never articulated before. You just kind of know it, and then all of a sudden you have a sense of amazement at your own self, like, oh wow, I can't believe this is coming from me. You have that experience? That's when you're connected to the power of your spiritual understanding. That's when you're accessing that source deeper inside you, that intuitive part that's connected to all knowledge, all intelligence, all wisdom. It's independent from them, but it's also, that's where it gets its source. If we as human beings are going to work on our power of understanding, it's because we are aware of our relationship to the divine. We are aware of knowledge, intelligence, and wisdom that exists at the level of divine mind. And we understand that we're independent from that, but we have direct access to it also. Always available to us. There is so much to say about this. There really is. It's like, and one of the things that I've been grateful for this year is the ability and the opportunity, I should say, to speak about these powers multiple times a month. Because by the time I get the month over with and move into next month, I have grown a whole lot in my understanding of 12 powers. I have grown in my facility to communicate nuances. I mean, I spend several days a month over the course of the month preparing this, and then as the month progresses, even between each talk on Sunday, I go back over the same material. I write about it again. I look at what I wrote 2 weeks ago and say, is that how I'm understanding it now? Is there a nuance in the presentation that I need to clarify in my presentation? Not so that I can be more clear to you. It's so that I can be more clear for myself. And as I get more clear for myself, as I gain deeper parts of my own spiritual understanding and then express that in the world, then that serves as an example for others to go, wow, Rick made me think about this today. I didn't teach you anything. That's what I keep stressing that, because it's one method, one teacher. You have the same teacher I do. We have the same teacher that the Christ had. Jesus even told the Pharisees and everybody when he's tearing down the temple, even the Christ has but one teacher. Even the Christ has the same one teacher. to me, I don't know about y'all, but that's a very liberating idea for me. And I didn't always think or understand that until probably this year when I really started digging down deeper, and that piece came through to me in June when I was working on this Power of Spiritual Law and Order. That even the Christ has but one teacher. That's why he says, what I can do, you can do. In fact, you'll do even greater things. In fact, you'll do even greater things. Because as we evolve, right, we gain more and more of our power. We express it more and more rightly as we go along. Now, I'm going to conclude this talk today by referencing Albert Einstein. I want to find this little piece. By the way, if you want to follow along with these, or in particular this, my website, souldiving.com, has a lot of these writings that are the basis of these talks that have been going on. I'm getting better at actually writing and publishing them now. It's been much more active. But as I was studying, I'm an Einstein fan. I don't know about anybody else, but I love this guy on so many levels. I can't even. I don't know anybody who, maybe Shakespeare, maybe Jesus, who has more quotes, good quotes, than Einstein does. Every time I turn around, some of my favorite quotes of all time are Einstein's. And Charles talks a lot about Einstein in the context of this chapter on the power of understanding. And what Einstein says is this. I'm just going to read this paragraph and then a quote from Einstein. It says, like Jesus and Charles Fillmore for that matter, Einstein would agree that humankind largely misunderstands the true nature of our being. And therefore we misunderstand the creative power that is available for the correct expression of our being. However, Einstein also strongly believed that anyone from any walk of life could correct a flawed understanding through a conscious willingness to do so. As I said before, you don't gain spiritual understanding unless you ask for it. So there was an article that he quotes, an interview with Einstein in a magazine back in 1930. And this was the quote that Einstein had in the context of this article. Every man knows that in his work he does best and accomplishes most when he has attained a proficiency that enables him to work intuitively. Y'all know that space, like when you're doing what you do and you put in your time and everything, and you're not thinking about working anymore, you're actually just doing the work. And when you're at that intuitive level, especially you get a lot of this experience when you're in your creative modes. If you're writing poetry or writing a song or doing a painting, you just kind of surrender to the moment and time just kind of drops away. Then you're not thinking about painting, you're not thinking about writing a poem, you're just listening and following through at an intuitive level. He says, there are things which we come to know so well that we do not know how we know them. So it seems to me in matters of principle that perhaps we live best and do things best when we are not too conscious of how and why we do them. There's a thing that we talk about with respect to jazz musicians a lot. Jazz is an improvisational art, right? It's in the moment. They'll be playing the same song night after night, but they never play it the same way. They never take the same leads. Everything's improvised in the moment. And there's this idea in jazz of being in the zone. You're in the zone. When you're in the zone, you're not thinking about playing jazz. You just play it. Right? But in that moment, when you're in the zone, if you ever thought, oh wow, man, I'm in the zone. Guess what? Not in the zone anymore. Because you come out of that intuitive level, you got back into thinking mode. Hey, how cool, man, I'm playing jazz. Forget that. Best comment I ever heard a musician make one time. Really, really phenomenal drummer. His name's J.J. Johnson. He's now playing with the Tedeschi Trucks band. Saw him on Steamboat downtown Austin in like the 1990s, and he just like played like 2 or 3 sets with different bands. Like he played a jazz band, a hard rock band, and this, that, and the other, and everybody just like, J.J., it's unbelievable. Stand backstage, and somebody said, "Hey, J.J., what were you thinking about when you were out there playing today?" He said, "Don't remember." No idea. Because he wasn't thinking about anything. He was playing. That's when we're operating at that intuitive level. And that's what the power of spiritual understanding is about. So as we go forward, next month we'll talk about judgment and discernment and how they're, and parse that out a little bit more. But for this month, just know that your spiritual understanding is deeply embedded at an intuitive level on the right side of your brain, right side of your mind. That it is connected directly to the field of potential ideas, divine ideas, all knowledge, all wisdom, all intelligence, all power. It's connected, has that direct access. It's like we're hardwired into that field. You have it. If you don't think you understand something, sit down and consider it. Listen deeply. Try to stop thinking. Get into that intuitive part. And that's when that inspiration, that little idea, that little piece of looking at something slightly differently than you did before opens up a whole new thing. Thank y'all for your attention. I truly, truly love getting to do this with you guys over the course of the year. Thank you for this opportunity. Next month we're going to tackle judgment. All right.